Welcome to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And it is real under, we'll see, but we're going to try to make it quick in and out and nobody gets hurt around here. And we have a bit of a story or something that I'm considering a developing story. And we'll see. Looks like BLM is back in the news and more to come. And it looks like we have a little bit of frustration and a little bit of developing story that involves accountability for BLM. And it's funny how this is coming up right now because just a couple of months ago, we were hearing that there were some structural conflicts or a little bit of dissension in the ranks or even the power structure. Um, in terms of BLM. So we're going to get into that and we're going to try to keep this real. I didn't want to commit to 30 minutes, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But as always, I want to thank you guys so much for choosing Black Spring on this Thursday at this time. And also, I want to give thanks to the loyal patrons and subscribers, as well as our friends over on Periscope. And if you're over on Twitch, thank you so much for that. So we will be right back after couple of word of thanks to our patrons. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. BLM and some developments amongst not just not just the affiliates, if you will, on a domestic level, but I think this is a little bit more. It's still, I think, a structural dissent that's happening, but I think there's also an issue with the funding and or the lack thereof. So I think that has it's just an expansion, I think, of a problem or a recognition that there was a problem. Are you guys still suffering from no sound? Let's see. Hello, awesome Alice and John H. Roberts Jr. Thank you so much for tuning in. So if you guys just give me a one, and maybe we could just make that that's our universal language around here for sound yes and sound no with the two. So if I get a two, then I'll recognize right away that you guys aren't actually getting the sound that you need. So this particular liner is going to come out of. Thanks so much for that, Derek C. Williams, and thank you so much for tuning in. And what I actually have a. I'm going to let this story speak for itself. I'm going to let you hear from the what can I call them, the plaintiffs, if you will, which I think it could be. I think it could very well end up being a situation like that. So we're going to hear from the plaintiffs here in just a few moments, and then we'll also see a little bit of the surrounding circumstances that are, some maybe some of the things that kind of led up to this. But I kind of want to give you the less of the bun and lettuce on the front of this, and let's just get right to the meat of it, and then we can do some commentary. But that's just going to be generally what we're going to look at here, and maybe just a little bit of reflection on some of the dissent that we've been hearing about since December, when it comes to structures and power and even the finances. Um, so yeah, so it looks like some things are not quite spelled out or not clear, or we'll find out. So I just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Hello, Derek C. Williams, and thank you so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And no, you are not late to the party here. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming in, and I want to thank you so much for sharing my walkaway story. As I said earlier, I'm surprised that it's still out there, and that anybody was able to view it, because it got very few likes right at the beginning. So, but I said I brought that up. I brought it to the table today because that walkaway, it was not so much. It wasn't walk away in full name, or really a red pilling kind of a moment. It was more just this was my beginning, or the infancy of BSWA. So that was the reason that I brought it up. So it's actually coming up as a couple of years that I've been around. But thank you for sharing that. I think what a difference almost 2 years makes. I mean, even from that point, I'm still learning things and evolving. So I appreciate you for sharing that, and giving me that time on your platform. So thank you. Shout out to Derek C. Williams, fantastic content creator. And in about 2 minutes, we're going to get this thing rolling. We're going to roll into the reel under however many minutes, and we're going to feature this BLM story. And Derek C. Williams says, "You seem to have been red pilled." Awesome. Yeah, something like that. Something. Yeah, but I really appreciate it. And so just a couple of minutes, we are going to get into this, because we're going to hear from. Now, this is going to be a blast from the past. And I'm saying, in some ways, I'm thinking, well, this appears to be a little bit of the chickens coming home to roost. I'm not, could it be? I'm not sure. I said this is a developing story, and I will treat it as such. So we're going to hear from Michael Brown's father, a Ferguson activist, at the demand of $20 million from BLM. So, this story kind of got by me, which things tend to do. But we're going to look at it and see what it's all about. So just a couple of infomercials, and we're going to go right in. I'll be right back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you haven't had an opportunity to hit the like, unlike, or make sure you're still subscribed, you'll have an opportunity to do that. But there's no time like the present. So I'll see you guys right back here. All right, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you so much also to our friends who have joined us over on Twitch. And we'll be right back right after this. All right, guys, so let's get going here. We're 10 minutes and 52 seconds into this live stream of Real Under. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with we have a looks like what I consider a statement that's going to come from members, affiliates, and those who can I say have been affected by BLM, or yes, or those that have believed in that cause, and they're seeking, retribution, some form of, they're looking for some accountability. So we're going to go with that. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn, and let's go there right now.
Greetings. I'm Tory Russell, Ferguson frontline organizer. And on the behalf of many activists in the St. Louis area, I'm joined with Mike Brown Sr., the father of Mike Brown Jr. Today, we hold Black Lives Matter accountable. The movement that is catapulted into the limelight has forgotten about Ferguson and the freedom fighters. Freedom fighters like King D. Seals, Edward Crawford, and Danye Jones have literally given their lives to the struggle, but are rarely spoken about and families are not taken care of. Brother Ali, Joshua Williams, and many other political prisoners from the Ferguson movement are incarcerated or have been, and still has received no assistance from Black Lives Matter. What kind of movement are we building where we're saying Black Lives Matter, but the freedom fighters and the families are being left behind? Where is our restitution? Where is our organizing? Where is our building of a movement? We have groups like the Lost Voices and the Freedom Fighters here, and thousands of other youth activists in their 20s and 30s have been out in the streets protesting for months and months and years for years. Still forgotten. We're asking that Black Lives Matter leadership funds $20 million to Ferguson organizers, organizations, and community foundations to do the work. We're not begging for a handout. We're coming for what we deserve. Today, as we demand the $20 million to go to Ferguson as restorative measures so we can continue what we started, here's what we'll be organizing. Annual commemorations around Mike Brown Jr.'s life, mutual aid programs, Black Panther style programs and services to meet the needs of the people, community gardens and farms, and also organizing fellowships and stipends so we can fight white supremacy full time. This is what we started in Ferguson, and this is what we will continue.
All right, guys. So I thought you might be interested in those developments. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to take you to the framing of this piece that I'm presenting, and there we'll get a little bit of the background information from. This is going to come from the New York Post. And so, like I said, I wanted to give you the meat of it first, and then we can see some of these surrounding, which we're not, those of you or of us that have been following, many developments concerning Black Lives Matter throughout the year, even whether it's 2020 or if you want to go back even further, wherever you jumped in. There's been tons of developments, and I think just recently, within the last 3 months or so, that some things started coming out, and people are starting to question, what is this organization? And I'm not I'm not going to add anything until after, we've kind of looked at some of the surrounding the framework here, or what they are alleging some of these circumstances are in in this case. And I'm referring to them as the plaintiff, and maybe that's too strong, or maybe it's not appropriate, but that's just my assertion for now. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I guess what I could do is just let me just say hello to everybody in the chat before I go into that. We do have Tyrants Bane TDOA. How are you doing? Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it, and all that you do to support the channel. Derek C. Williams, he says a ton of activists in Ferguson are died in vain, looks like. And Derek C. Williams says Black Lives Matters left Ferguson to die savage. And Derek says, on the other hand, Black Lives Matters never really was for Black people. Imagine my shock. See, I want you guys to get it out, because I'm going to wait. And Awesome Alice says, the guy that started the Ferguson BLM was killed. Wow. Well, like I said, we're gonna get into a bit of what I'm also going to consider the grievances, but it's been building. I think that this thing is, I think it's a powder keg, but I don't know. I think there's been quite a few hands in the pot, so to speak, or a few people, I'm not sure what's going to become of it, but we're going to go to that liner that comes out of the New York Post. And as I said earlier, we've talked about grassroots organizations, and we've talked about how, whether you refer to them as radical groups or underground groups, we talked about how eventually, when there's no clarity or lack of clarity in situations like this, you have these power struggles, and these, nobody really wants to. I think originally they wanted to refrain from, or it was, it appeared to be mutually agreed upon that they weren't going to declare someone as, top notch or top person or chief, or however you want to call it. I want to say something else, but I won't say it on here. But you had a self-declaration or a self-proclamation from one of the founders back in December, and that didn't quite make the news. We also know that in this current regime or / administration, that the meeting that they had with the Black civil rights leaders, as they were coined, I say that they're activists. They are activists, not to impugn them, but I think Blacks should choose their own leaders and not have liberals tell them who their leaders are. And I think that's a big problem. And so they had this meeting with Biden, and we did go over that on this show. And BLM didn't have a seat, as they like to speak. They didn't have a seat at the table. So, I'm not surprised. But here again, I said I wasn't going to add anything until we got through more of this. And I'm going to read your comment, Derek, really quickly before we go into the bun and lettuce, if you will. Derek says, I've done a few videos on that outfit. What reasonable person really thought Black Lives Matter championed Black causes? Its leaders said they were, quote, trained Marxist, end quote. Touche, my friend. Thank you so much. Yes, you have. You guys get over to Derek C. Williams. He's got quite a bit in his library, and he is the prolific Derek C. Williams for a reason. And also, Derek C. Williams says, and Marxism definitely is anti-Black. Hi, Rachel Van Ziel. Thank you so much for coming in. And Rachel Van Ziel says, for some reason, some people want things like communism, Marxism, socialism. All right. So what we're going to do is let's go for a little bun and lettuce. Before that, when you read Derek's comment, he says Mike Brown's mama tried to run for political office. Turns out she hired folks to beat up his grandmama over selling t-shirts. Yikes. Okay, so with that said, we're going to go right on over to the New York Times, and we'll have their perspective on what's happened, what's with the dissension in the ranks here. All right, so we've already done the audio, and you've gotten that testimony. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at this, what I call the bun and lettuce of this situation, and I'll give it to you here, and then we'll just do some commentary, and then we'll probably get you guys on your way on your Thursday. Thanks so much for taking the time. According to this, the father of Michael Brown and other activists from Ferguson, Missouri, are demanding financial support from Black Lives Matter after the organization revealed it raised over $90 million last year. Michael Brown Sr., whose son was fatally shot by a white police officer in August 2014, along with the other activists who helped propel the movement, want $20 million from the group to help their community. Quote, "Where's all the money going?" End quote, Brown Sr. asked in a Tuesday press release from the International Black Freedom Alliance. Quote, "How could you leave the families who are helping the community without any funding?" End quote. The police shooting of Michael Brown sparked months of unrest in Ferguson and helped solidify the national Black Lives Matter movement. Okay, so here they're giving you some of the imagery from that time. According to this, quote, "We're not asking for a handout, but for the funding to keep the movement strong where it began," said Tori Russell, a Ferguson activist and co-founder of the International Black Freedom Alliance. The funds in Ferguson would be used in part to build a community center in honor of Michael Brown, the press release said. Last month, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation shared its funding numbers and an impact report first provided to the Associated Press. Okay, so here I'm going to put this in the stream for you guys because you can, if you want to go back in time and do more on this, you can, because it's provided here. So you're kind of getting, you're getting a little bit of the gist of, you're getting a little bit of memory lane, but you also heard the statement from the family members and an activist is what you had here. But we've talked about this before. We talked about even the chapters. I think maybe there were 10. I don't know if you guys remember. There were about 10 chapters in which I think they all applied for funding on some level, and then they were some of those chapters. Most of them were told that they didn't qualify for the funding that they were applying for, and I think they resorted to crowdfunding ended up being the source of funding that they had, but they applied for funding from BLM and they did not receive that. And also we had Miss Patrice Cullors. She also announced herself as the executive, what can I say, the founder of this, what can I call it, the organization? Because, for a long time, they didn't want to give a name. It was like they were all tight-lipped about who is the person to go to. They had, what was it, maybe 3 co-founders, I believe, at the beginning. We even have an article here. Let's go back down memory lane, just to give you a point of reference here. So I'm going to remove that one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. And we'll revisit that just 1 second. But yes, there was an issue a couple of months ago, and it just seems to be this thing is kind of spiraling out of control. But here again, I kind of want to hold back before I say anything because I kind of know what I'm going to say, but I just want to give you guys an opportunity. If you guys are new to this channel, that you can kind of get a little bit more on the landscape and where this organization has been, and they're not happy. So, I can tell that they're not happy with the administration, because they didn't get a seat at the table during the during the meetings or during the negotiations on, I think the 100 days is what this is where it came about, the discussion about what was going to actually happen with policing. Were they going to continue were they going to continue in the defunding? As you notice that we don't hear anything else about defunding the police. And in fact, Biden mentioned that in that 100 days meeting, that they wanted to distance themselves from that because that's how they got, for the lack of a better word, they got smacked around because of what they were, the campaign, what they were chanting during the campaign. And yes, they were chanting, defund the police. Those were their words. But I noticed that in politics, the politicians, they never think that their words or their tags are going to come back to haunt them. But naturally it did. So here, this is what we visited back in December, where you can start to see, the things kind of falling apart. The Black Lives Matter power grab sets off internal revolt. So it's not just one structure or one paradigm in this group. It seems like there's just many issues. And this is coined at the top, at issue with whether grassroots energy can translate to influence inside the Beltway and at what cost. So we're not going to go over all of this, but we will get into the section in which Ms. Cullors actually elevated herself to the leadership position. And I think that was problematic. And we'll see who's going to be held accountable. To say accountability, but what are the parameters for the accountability? I mean, I think it's going to be messy because I think it hasn't been on the level. So let's just go. The transparency is what I'm talking about, whether it be funding, those people that were on the ground, if you can say that, they had their people on the ground doing all this protesting and burning and looting and all kinds of things that were going on. They're not, and then you probably had people that weren't doing that. You had people that weren't participating in any of that, and they want to know what's going on with this organization. We are not where this was not the objective. And I'm not sure, if you look at the website, I don't agree with more than most of the stuff on there. So I can imagine that the people, maybe they didn't understand what they were getting into. But I have said this before, and I'm going to assert this, that this is what happens when you jump on things without doing any kind of research or finding out, what your who's your financier on an organization like this. And they picked up quite a bit of traction last year. And it actually grew very quickly. And that funding came about very quickly. You guys can remember some of the commercials. You couldn't even get around. You couldn't get around any commercials, whether it be Target or Walmart. All the big box stores were absolutely involved they were rah BLM everywhere. It was on everything, even kids' video games. Everything was dripping BLM last year. And like, poof, are you guys hearing about them so much now? I mean, so we're just going to look at that really quickly, and then we'll just see if you guys have any commentary. I'm going to put this link out here. I'll give you your usual 3 to 5, and then we will say so long. I appreciate it. Like I said, this kind of got by me, and but I thought it should come up because I think it's going to be a developing story, and yeah, so we'll just go from there. So thank you guys so much once again. So I'm going to give you some full scale on this, and then I will put the link there for you. Hi, Anarchy Television. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you will, please hit the like button. But here's the other thing. Here's my other assertion before we go into this thing, the final part of it is my assertion when it comes to what we've witnessed in the media and just politicians overall. It seems to me that we're looking at there's about a 9 to 12 month lag on everything the reaction to everything that happened last year is just now starting to come in. And I've said, like, we have all of, it seems like we're having an entire replay of the last 9 to 12 months, all inside of, in between February and now, from here on out. So it's like we're living, we're kind of living backwards. We're living, we're having to relive what we've already been exposed to. And but we were all called, theorists, and all these, total denial, total silence on these issues. And yeah, you can go all the way to New York, with the governor and his situation. That's old news to, to people that look to subscribe to alternative sources for their news. This is not new. We knew these things were rotten and they smelled, but now all of a sudden they smelled everybody else. So, I'm going to go back to this, to the article here. And thank you guys so much for coming in. I'm going to drop this link right now, because we're just going to skim a little bit, but because we've already done this before. And that's why I think it's also why I find myself saying it feels like Groundhog's Day around here. And it feels like we're doubling down, or tripling down on Groundhog's Day, because we are not just learning of these ills and the corruption and the Marxist and their ideological subversions, and they subverted for a whole 9 to 12 months. And now, oh my gosh, it's injustice. I can't believe what I saw when I turned on the TV. Yeah. I'm disgusted, but you're like 9 to 12 months disgusted, delayed, too late. Okay, so just really quickly here, it's just only a couple of things that I want to look at here, because this article is actually pretty lengthy and we've already gone into it. But of course, this is a grassroots organization, and their structure and the order to the group, to me, I was thinking, okay, well, this could be a disaster if there is no real structure and no one's taking the leadership role on. But according to this, let's scoot down just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go to this part of this article. It says we'll start right here. After a summer of protests that made Black Lives Matter a household name, those atop the movement are making a series of moves to alter its power structure, organizing a political action committee, forming corporate partnerships, adding a third organizing arm, and demanding an audience with President-elect at the time, Joe Biden. The moves have triggered mutiny in the ranks. 10 local chapters are severing ties with Black Lives Matter Global Network, as the national leadership is known. They are furious that Patrisse Cullors, its remaining co-founder, assumed the role of executive director of the group and made the decisions without their input. That's a move that to some signal a rebuke of its, quote, leaderful, end quote, structure, which gave every member an equal say and kept anyone, including a founder, from overreaching. So yes, so this was kind of where we were going, what we saw, where we started to see, okay, so now they're going to reveal some things about what's actually going on behind the scenes here. So then it goes into more. I don't want to go into all of this, but as I said, I'm going to put this in the stream for you guys, as well as the other article. But it talks about, eventually this thing kind of breaks down, where these groups, these other 10 chapters, where they were seeking the funding and whether they were approved and whether they were not approved, and they were not happy. But it just seems like they've just got problems. They've got problems all over the place. I mean, yes, leadership, philanthropy, it's all looking like a mess. But is it a surprise mess? No, not to me. And I don't think it's to most of you. But I will say that I think the betrayal kind of comes in a situation like this, is because when you lock arms with the political action committees, what do you expect? I mean, I think we all witnessed, even on this channel, and I think some other channels, people that tried to go to the BLM website to donate, and they were redirected to, what was it, Act Blue. And under Act Blue is where people started questioning, the use of the names. They made tons of money in the names of they made tons of money in the names of people that were slain or unjustly slain, and they've got nothing to show for it. But here's the thing: I don't know what they were promised, and I would imagine if this goes to court, or if anybody's going to take this on, what are they going to deny that any compensation was ever even a part of what they were doing, of a part of it? But they are seeking recompense in this situation, so we'll just see what happens there. So I'm going to put the link here for you guys. But I can see, they've already they were betrayed I'm sure they feel betrayed. The 100 days meeting, they didn't get that. That was a leaked out meeting in which the quote civil rights leaders were there, and they were pretty much chastised and just really demoralized from what I could see in that meeting. So I'm not sure if they would have even gained any traction there. And yes, Derek C. Williams brings another excellent point. Yes, he says a BLM chapter in Atlanta, its founder is in jail. He jerked people out of almost $250,000. So, who knows? I think this is only, there's going to be a bunch of little landmines going off, or little bombshells going off everywhere. But I don't know if they claim that they were wronged, or I'm not sure what this is going to look like if it becomes some type of a, legal, if they seek some type of legal recourse. So I say that to mean that we'll just continue to follow the story on here. And that's what we'll do. So I will drop the link to see if anybody wants to chime in just for a bit. And if not, we will say so long, but I wanted to bring this to you, as we will keep an eye on it. I mean, how many of you have been back to that website since to see if it's still directing people? If you go to the donate button, if it's still redirecting people. Now, we've seen their action projects. We've seen the legislation that they are backing, even what I call the fifth wheel. They're backing, Cori Bush on legislation for this administration, and maybe a couple of other pieces that they're asking for people to call representatives on. But this is a global organization. And see, the thing about it is, I don't even want to call it an organization, because it's almost like they purposely kept this thing, kept the affiliation, in a gray area, so that, you can't really tie it to, it's like nobody really wanted to be attached to this thing. And you can see why. Would you want to be attached to this thing? I mean, you got to be able to pull the cord, right? All right. So there is a link out there. And with that said, we're going to take just an infomercial break, and we will be right back. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. right, guys. Thank you so much once again. And it looks like John Roberts is here, and John Roberts has something to say. He says, had to switch from Periscope. I think Scope is on its last leg. Well, we are here to we're here to we're the parachute, we're the safety net right here. So thank you so much, John Roberts. I really appreciate you for coming over. It's nice to see you here from Periscope, and it's nice to have you. And Awesome Alice, I want to read a few comments here. Let's see, we'll start with Anarchy Television, who says a secret society pulling the strings of Antifa and BLM. And Awesome Alice says, hey everyone, but look up at the religious IFA explains a lot's on their tactics. Also, the call the evil one, the trickster. And Rachel Van Deal says, reminds me of Black Panther, Alice. Yeah, so this is history to me kind of repeating itself. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, and I don't want to go on a rant, but I also want to say that I think when you put stock in political action committees and liberals and progressives, I think you're always going to be you're going to be subject to fall to the con. And I don't think we'll ever get to some of the cons of the past, which I have my own suspicions or my own hypothesis on some things that happened in the past. And I do see that, history is likely to repeat itself, because I think people unfortunately, I think the generations, 3 generations before us, they weren't paying attention either. They were just running to the liberals and falling for every banner that they put up, for every plight that existed. I think the liberals were right there to catch them and say, oh, we're fighting for you. And and that's why I try not to use the word. I'm finding the word culture to be a little bit dangerous to use, because to me, with the amount of control it seems like that the elite have overall, and just thinking, okay, how much culture is actually yours? If they gave you if they give you the funding and you have to play by their rules, then it's almost like, is that really your culture? If you're controlled, if you're a puppet on a string, if you have to play by their rules, then it's not really yours. And I don't think people have learned anything. They just keep going for they go for their narrative, and they allow the liberals to choose the leaders in the Black community. Yeah, I think that needs to stop. But like I said, We Shall Overcome was not born of the United States in the 1950s, late 50s, or the 60s here. It wasn't. That happened all over the world in at least 3 or 4 other nations. And we're still, it seems to have stuck here. It's still stuck here. If you go over to BLM right now, you'll see the slogan, We Shall Overcome. We Shall Overcome is still the banner that they're holding. And I've said this even on Derek C. Williams. Derek C. Williams, shout out to you. You're in the comments section, or you're in the chat today. That they have an incredible way of making heroes out of enemies, and vice versa. And that affects the culture. And it's easy. You're groomed to fall into you just keep looping the same trap. And I just don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, I don't know. But I do want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And let me just read some comments here, because I'm sure they are priceless. So Awesome Alice says the culture has been altered to bring down the Black community and dehumanize them by portraying Black folks as victims and thugs. Shaking my head. And Anarchy said, in Roman law, it says, for one who's deceived shall be deceived. And Anarchy says, hey, Rachel, what about the Black Power movements during the 1963 riots? Yes, Alison Ellis, she says, nothing is new under the sun. So, yes. Yeah, there's a lot that I could say. I mean, we've talked about this on this channel before. We've talked about radical movements and historical, radical movements. I mean, here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you look at the structure, the financiers, the philanthropists that are backing BLM, it just falls right. It's all history. You have, I can't think of it, Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers is on their board. Demand the impossible. It's, I mean, and they were around. But to see the country wanting to co-sign on some level, some type of curriculum, it just sounds really, it sounds that there's a lot of infrastructural taint and just corrupt mess. And it did not happen in the last 10 years, 8 years, 4 years. No. So we'll see what happens, but I think this is just the beginning, I think, of many things falling apart, or those people will be seeking something. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know what they were promised. So I'm not in a position to say, oh, they're entitled to nothing, or no, I'm not. But I will say that the transparency wasn't there to begin with, and most people did not look into these organizations. I mean, I don't mean to impugn or disenfranchise anybody here, but I'm going to tell you, in SoCal, at any moment last summer, you might look to your left and there's a minivan with Black Lives Matter on it, with just a piece of paper, just a blank piece of paper with Black Lives Matter smashed into the back dash of the vehicle, or into the minivan in the side window. And I'm just thinking, what is going on here? Yeah, like, are you thinking people are going to smash your vehicle if you're it? I mean, you could not turn around last summer. And sometimes I wonder if the people that were making these signs and dripping their vehicles and putting them on their restaurant windows, like, did they look into any of this? It's not just a subversion of one group of people at this point. To me, it's a subversion of the entire country. They've been successful with the Black community. They can get you to go against your own interest now. It's diabolical. It really is. But as I said, we are going to, this will just be a developing story that I'll keep an eye on for you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and just a few more comments and then we'll pack it up and say so long on your Thursday. So what do we have here? We have Rachel Van Ziel. And Rachel says, I meant the religious witchcraft in BLM reminds me of stuff in the movie Black Panther. And Awesome Alice says, get the book Color, Communism, and Common Sense by Manning Johnson. It's a Black man who goes into the Communist Party and he exposed them in the end. Good read. I may have to take that down. Thank you for sharing that, Awesome Alice. And it's Manning Johnson. Let's see. There's so many good reads out there. I mean, you speaking of that, we have a content creator in here, The Definition of Anarchy. He has a book out. And I'm going to put that link in the stream. So shout out to you, TDOA. He's I think he might still be around. If you're still here, give us a sign. Give us a sign that you're still around. Okay. So I'm gonna put his book in the stream. All right. And Rachel says, I'm of the opinion that both black and white supremacist groups are run by the same types of elite groups and governments. And Awesome Alice says, I have ordered a lot of books here lately to study the Communist Party. They're a lot like the Communist Manifesto and Rules for Radicals. Yes. Yeah, but all you have to, if you just listen to Bill Ayers, even if you do it via an interview or if you grab one of his books, it's just a carbon copy of the things that are going on. Like, they tell you what their intent is. They tell you. Oh, Derek C. Williams is still here. He says, read his book, quote, Seeds of Dark Matter Disease, scary as hell. So we're going to put that out there. Shout out to The Definition of Anarchy. And thank you so much, Derek C. Williams, for sharing that. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's so many good reads out there. Okay, we have it here. I'm just going to put it there for you. And I think his, if he's still out there, if you're still out there, Anarchy, I mean, the definition, I think this is available on a couple of different mediums or platforms, if you will. So here it is. I'm just going to put it here. Okay, so there you go. There you go. That's the Definition of Anarchy's book that's out. And yes, yeah, it's interesting. Derek C. Williams says William Ayers, Obama's benefactor, stepping on the American flag. Yeah, he and Bernardine Dorn and the Weatherman Underground. They're very familiar with grassroots and radical organizations. Yeah, but they're still walking around like, funding and like Chicago. I mean, I saw this interview, and it was, Dorn and Ayers were both present, and they basically, it was probably about 2 hours, I guess. And they talked about, they just, they're clearly elite, and even if you strip them of whatever, they're still, they know what's best. And I think that, I don't know, there's another book that of Ayers that I started reading, and it kind of talks about his own upbringing. And yeah, I just think people have issues that they don't want to work out. They have issues of their own that they don't want to work out, and then they kind of turn it into, yeah, they just kind of project it onto, oh, they can make the world a better place because, that's what they do with that energy. And yeah, I'm surprised those people are like, just, they're allowed to fund this organization. It's just, what can I say? And thank you so much. Derek C. Williams posted Tyrant's Bane TDOA. There's his link. And yes, you guys can drop your links in the stream. Even though this is not a grow channel, and I appreciate you guys. I usually send people over to the community tab, and I usually, I don't have any issues with if you want to post something, you can, usually you just ask me, or if you are we have stripes in here. And I don't normally deny requests, so I appreciate you guys for dropping links where available, if you can, and drop your own link as well. So I appreciate it. So I'm going to share a couple more of these comments because you guys' comments are contagious. And Awesome Alice says, with grassroots, question is who planted them and then watered them to grow. And it looks like Anarchy Television has a comment. He says, Alice, you should know your enemy and yourself. Derek C. Williams says, weather underground bombing federal buildings. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, that's very, one of his, like I said, I'm reading one of his books, and it's, to me, there's a lot going on there. Just the childhood kind of stuff is already, I could already see like, wow, I think that Ayers kind of has some type of, he's got some kind of little issue, I think, with himself, something going on there. And because he talked about it in his own book about him, to me, this is my assertion or my hypothesis, is that maybe he doesn't think that he quite fit in. I mean, there's a section in the book in which he talked about the babysitter coming over, and the baby, one of the babysitters one night, she said, "Oh, it's time for the Ayers kids to go to bed now. You have to go home now." So I'm just thinking this kid is, that's got to set up some kind of serious insecurity that either he didn't deal with, or I don't know. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but you could tell that was a tough pill for him to swallow, even if it's, childhood scars. And sometimes they don't quite go away, especially if they're not addressed, if they're not addressed. But I think that really got to him. I think if he put that in the book, yeah. Let's see. I'm going to read some more comments here. All right. Derek C. Williams, guilty as sin, free as a bird. William Ayers. And that's not the one, but I'm going to check that one out for sure. But but the thing is, when I talk about this, I'm talking about the culture of these radicals, the radical groups, and the things that we saw last summer. But it's kind of classic. They wrote the book on gut checking people, and we talked about that the other night. Like, you guys, I think people all over the country, or especially white people right now, they're getting gut checked everywhere they go. They're getting gut checked by other white people. They're getting gut checked at work by their employees. I mean, their employers. There's a gut check everywhere now. So who knows what history is going to say about, this radical, the radicalization right now. I think it's expanded. Like, you've got, you might get gut checked anywhere, but that's something that they would do. It was something that they would do to see if, you're down with the struggle, and they were trying to prove something. And but we'll save that for another we'll save that for another time. And I'm going to read this one. It says, Awesome Alice says, the weather underground has the white hate issues. They want to take it out on all the white children. And Derek C. Williams says he admitted to authoring Obama's book, quote, "Dreams of My Father, no way," laughed about it on PBS. And Derek says John Brennan just said, quote, "I'm embarrassed to be a white man." Ooh, that burns. Yeah, the white guilt is it's pretty self-destructive. And I really wish my friends that are of the lighter hue would stop doing it. I really wish they would stop doing it. Stop participating in it. Just stop playing the role. Stop playing the role. And Awesome Alice says, reminds me of the movie White Man's Burden. All right, guys. As always, You guys are always great with the commentary. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys so much for coming in for this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And our real under. All right. And with that said, I'm going to give a final hello to everyone and amen to Anarchy Television. This is get out of the city. Please, if you can get out of the city. So I'm going to say hello to everybody in the chat. And I also want to thank John Roberts for coming on over here. Coming on over. Can I say you came over to the dark side? You're officially on the dark side with us now. Okay. So, and also I remind anybody else, the people that I have, I've done a bit of a Twitch shout out on the stream. So if you're not a part of Twitch, we'd love to have you there. And yes, because who knows, we're still under 100 days, right? Last time I checked, we were still under 100 days. So we'll see. And I did mention that I think YouTube has some plans, not saying that we won't survive the plans, but alternative platforms, I think, are going to be, they're going to be relevant. And thank you so much, John H. Roberts Jr. Oh, so John, you were on Periscope before you came over here. You were actually there and then you came over. Okay. Thank you so much, Derek C. Williams. I really appreciate it. And shout out to Derek C. Williams. You guys, please get over to Derek C. Williams. He is, Derek's like one of the hardest working people on YouTube. And I think his library is quite extensive. So thank you so much, Derek C. Williams, for all the support and for playing my version of a walk away video. Okay. And Jermaine G. I never did say hi to you. Thank you so much, Jermaine G, for coming in. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Tyrant's Bane TDOA, thank you so much if you're still out there. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all you do to support the channel. Awesome Alice is always awesome. And I took down the name of that book. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Rachel Van Ziel. You're a fantastic stripe around here. And great contributor in our chat. And she keeps us on our toes around here. And who else do we have? Anarchy Television, yes. Another great and fun content creator. I think Anarchy is like one of the best storytellers. You should definitely check Anarchy out. And yeah, you won't be disappointed there. He's also very talented. I think he's on the verge of entrepreneurship, like full scale. He's on the rise, I think, for sure. Lots of talent there and craftsmanship for sure. And who else do we have? Did I miss anybody? So if you guys haven't had a chance to hit the like button, or the unlike button, tell us how you feel. Everybody else is. So that's why I just say, just do what you need to do. And thank you guys so much for the recommendations on the books. And then also, Derek, I'm going to take down the title that you gave. It's really intense. Reading Ayers. It's not, I'm not saying it's a difficult read, but I just think that there's some emotional stirring, I think. Very sad, what happened. And he talks about it. All right. And Mind's Journey. No way. Mind's Journey says, just here at the background while cooking. You do mean cooking, not coking, but I dare you to tell us what you're making. We appreciate that around here. And Rachel says, I was just referencing an article about making sure we educate white. Is it W for white babies because they are racist? Yeah. It's there's something outrageous every day that hits the ground. Dr. Seuss. Poor Dr. Seuss. And the funny thing is that what I'm seeing out of the mainstream, they talk about how, the people, the current regime / administration, about, they 2 years ago, they were singing a totally different tune. And, but the liberals won't care. Their followers won't care that they supported it. They just want to go along. They just want to go along with it, It's worse than that. And I've said this before, and I'm not saying that I know anything about, black magic or anything, but it just seems like we're under a spell. Like there's a huge portion of the population that's just, I don't know. I just think we've got so much subversion. We've been under a lot. So yeah, it's every day. It's a lot. All right, and final comment here. I'm going to read. This is Rachel. Awesome Alice's. They live in the woke zone. I wrote a story on the woke zone with my alumni thinking cap on. All right, guys. Well, we're going to do one final infomercial or a couple of infomercials, and then we're going to say so long on your Thursday. I thank you guys so much for coming in for the BLM developments. And we're going to keep an eye on that because I don't think that's the last. I don't think that's the last of the plaintiffs. In fact, I'm curious as to if it's going to somehow swell into something, if there's going to be a legal recourse or some type of civic suit is going to occur. I don't know. But I do know with the political action committees, I don't know if the politicians are going to be implicated in any of this. I don't know. But I said, before that it seems like we're about 9 or 12 months behind in what happened last year. So now they want to relive last year right now, all in 100 days. The chickens come home to roost in 100 days of this new administration / regime. And one comment here. Derek C. Williams says January 6th, insurrection, Georgia Capitol stormed, no insurrection. All right, guys. I want to thank you guys so much again. And we'll have a couple of infomercials and then we're out. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn on your Thursday. And I look forward to seeing you guys again in the next live stream in the comment section on a video or who knows, one of these tests that we tend to do around here. And, or even a video. A little bit low on the videos these days, but who knows? We'll see what happens. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening.